Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the Ross Rundown. I'm your host, Matt Errolson, alongside with me, Bran Fall. So we're trying something different. We've announced on Live at 5 that we're going to be bringing in some new shows, trying some different things. This is one of those experiments, so we're glad to have you along for the ride.
Good to be back.
Absolutely. So let's start the proverbial clock. And let's start with the Carolina Panthers, who continue to fall now.
Wow.
Now 6-7 after their loss to the lowly Cleveland Browns, 26-20. Real quick observation: the Browns after this win are now 5-7-1, so not as disrespectful to them as they've people have been in the past. But Carolina Panthers now 1-6 on the road. So what is going on with the Panthers?
Wow, I wish I could put a finger on it. It seems to be multiple things. They just can't finish games. They have turnovers at the worst time or missed passes or on receivers. It's just they can't get out of their own way, it seems like. It's truly amazing to watch. And amazingly, Ron Rivera thinks they can still make the playoffs.
Well, I think even at 6-7, technically they still can.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, again, we're going to talk about the Redskins. They're kind of in the same boat. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But Cam Newton was 26 of 42, so he was forced to throw the ball 42 times, which I'm okay with because I've preached here several times they need to stop running Cam so much. They've gotten away from that. But he only had 265 yards, no touchdowns, one pick. So I guess that was one facet of the game the Panthers didn't do so well.
Yeah, they turnovers are killing them. A lot of incompletions were just bad ones where he just overthrew receivers. I know he's got a shoulder issue that's been bothering him, and that's got to have an effect on his throwing. But man, they've got to figure something out. I mean, they got to win. They really realistically need to win all three games to have a good chance of getting in the playoffs, and two of them are against the Saints.
Yeah, it's make or break time for the Panthers for sure. Baker Mayfield, first pick overall, but still in his first year. He was 18 of 22, so very efficient throwing the ball. Only 238 yards, but he did have a touchdown. And then on the other side, McCaffrey, he had a decent game. 16 carries, 63 yards for 2 touchdowns. Of course, obviously it wasn't enough. Now, you mentioned Ron Rivera, otherwise known as Riverboat Ron. So can Riverboat Ron right the ship, so to speak?
Well, I think so, but I don't know if I think he can. I don't know if he will. I mean, a couple of years ago, they were in the same boat. They needed to pretty much win out, and they won out and got into the playoffs at like 7-8-1. He thinks they've got a chance to do that this year. I mean, it's not like they're not in ball games. They just find unique ways to lose them every single week, which is really frustrating.
It is, and I can tell you as a Skins fan firsthand how frustrating that can be. Again, foreshadowing there. But last question before we move on. Ron Rivera's had a really good career with the Panthers, but we know, as we just saw with Mike McCarthy last week, it's what have you done for me lately? Is he coaching for his job already?
I would say no for now. He was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. I think he's still safe for another year. But, I mean, I've been so wrong so many times in my few weeks on this show that I could be dead wrong. If you'd asked me about Mike McCarthy, I'd have said he wasn't going anywhere before the end of the year.
I would have said the exact same thing, although, losing 5 games in a row, that's tough on anybody. Whether you're an experienced coach, whether you're first year. It's sometimes, especially at that level, it can be difficult to right the ship. So speaking of ships, it's like turning around a oil tanker in a puddle kind of thing, Anyway, so let's move on. Talking about the Redskins, they at least the Panthers showed up.
Yeah.
The Redskins, poor Redskins, ended up losing 40-16 against a Giants team that was without Odell Beckham.
When I saw Beckham was going to be out of this game, I thought maybe that's the boost.
Yeah.
The Skins need to at least be competitive, and they were never in this game from the opening kickoff. They were terrible.
Yeah.
Sanchez is clearly not the answer.
No, he's not. Actually, the G-men scored 27 points in the second quarter, never looked back. Of course, that just like the Panthers, this now brings the Redskins record to 6-7. They're also free-falling. Let's talk about the Giants real quick. Odell Beckham came out a couple weeks ago. I think they were 3-8, and they said, what do you expect for the rest of the season? He said, we're going to win the rest of our games. We're going to finish 8-8, and we're going to make the playoffs. And we all laughed at him.
Yeah.
They've won 2 in a row since then. I mean, could they creep back up to 8-8?
They could win. If they win out, they would be 8-8. They still got a game with the Cowboys left. And Eli Manning has been a Cowboy killer in his career in a lot of big games. I mean, he won the first game at AT&T Stadium. One of the years the Cowboys went 13-3 and were predicted to roll through the playoffs. And Johnson knocked them out en route to a Super Bowl win. So if they get there in that Cowboy game and it means something, I wouldn't count them out.
They've definitely got some weapons. I know Eli's getting up there, but against the Redskins, he had 3 touchdowns. Speaking of some of the younger guys, they have Saquon Barkley. Finally, he's had a decent year, but he finally broke out and showed everybody what he could be capable of as a number 2 overall pick. 14 carries, 170 yards, and a touchdown. The Skins had no answer for him.
Yeah. He's unbelievable. I mean, him and Elliott, a couple years ago in the draft, they are really showing that the running back is still a valuable position in the NFL. If you can run the ball and keep the ball out of other teams' hands, you can have a chance to win in the NFL, and Barkley's proven that.
And as far as the draft, I know there was a few years there where they got away from taking running backs high. Ezekiel Elliott was one of those first ones that went high, and Saquon after him, so I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. Now, talking about Sanchez, I think anybody that has at least a small, feasible brain would understand that Mark Sanchez was not going to be the answer under center. We saw that. He threw, I think 2 picks.
Got benched. Like 38 yards or something.
Yeah, terrible game. Got benched for Josh Johnson, who is obviously not the answer either. As we saw, only 16 points. Without a solid quarterback option, I mean, I'm talking about trying to get back to the playoffs. Does Washington have a shot without a steady quarterback?
Well, I don't believe so. But like I said, I've been wrong so much. Who knows? But I don't see them. If Josh Johnson will probably start this week, I haven't heard, but I can't foresee Mark Sanchez starting another game for the Redskins unless there's an injury. But I feel like Josh Johnson will start. He did better than Sanchez anyway. But if that's their answer at quarterback for the rest of the year, I don't see them getting in.
I have to agree, unfortunately. And I've said this so many times. The Skins started out like 5-2 or maybe 6-2. We may have lost really 5 in a row as well. Alex Smith looked great. But I kept saying to myself, something's going to happen. We're going to end up at 500 or just above or just below. And, I think at this point we could end up being 6-10 and just losing the rest of the games.
Well, if they don't make the playoffs, they'd almost be better at 6-10 and get a better draft pick.
Absolutely right. I just want to throw something out real quick before we move forward. Colin Kaepernick has obviously been a name and a face that's been around the NFL, even though he's not playing. Of course, you get the circus that would come with it, and I know it's late in the season, but Kaepernick actually came out and said that he would be willing to come play for Washington.
Really?
Yeah, and I know that maybe a couple of weeks ago we discussed when Smith got hurt, should they go and give Kaepernick a call? If it sounds to me like it's kind of on the team at this point, so do you think maybe they give him a call, or do they say it's too late in the season?
Well, if they're trying to play for a draft pick, then no.
All right.
If they want to try to win these games, in my opinion, he's better than Josh Johnson or Mark Sanchez.
Absolutely.
It's no-brainer.
Absolutely. Of course, again, because of all the outside things, you have to weigh those as well. So I really don't think either way we'll see Kaepernick in a Redskins uniform. But if you're a fan and you want your team to win, you'd obviously want him on your team. If you want to bring in all the outside stuff, then I guess you'd say we don't want that.
I get the sentiment for not bringing him in. I do. I mean, I understand why he's not well liked. But at the end of the day, if we kicked everybody off every team that we disagree with their beliefs, we'd have a lot of empty rosters.
There would be very few people in the NFL. All right, let's move forward. It's the winter meetings are going on for Major League Baseball. Ended on Wednesday. That was the last full day out in Vegas, and it was kind of quiet. I mean, there was a couple of moves that got made, some that were talked about being made. So let's jump on a few of those. So first of all, perhaps the biggest so far, Paul Goldschmidt. The Diamondbacks, just phenomenal first baseman.
Great player.
Underrated, I think, but he got traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. So, two-part question. How much do you think this will improve the Cardinals, and do you think the Diamondbacks are just breaking it down?
I think the Cardinals immediately will contend next year in their division. I think you add him to the lineup they've already got, and he's a great player.
Right.
A great player. Like you said, underrated. He doesn't get talked about a lot because he plays out in Arizona. But he probably hit close to 300 last year, 30 bombs again. At least had 30 bombs. I don't know what he had, but I would take him in Atlanta in a minute, and I bet Freeman would say the same thing, and Freeman would find a different position to play to make it work.
And you remember, just made me think of when they tried him at third base, maybe last year before last, when I think it was Matt Adams came in and was hitting the ball. So, I mean, Freddie's that kind of guy. He would, But, Goldschmidt, he's, again, one of the top got to be 10 players in the league.
Easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about the Diamondbacks, they let Goldschmidt go. Zach Greinke's sitting there with all this money. Are they going to try to completely tear it down and try to move Greinke too?
You would think if they're moving Goldschmidt, that's what they're leaning towards, a complete rebuild. It looks like they're headed that direction. If they're trying to win, I don't see any scenario where they would give him up.
Yeah, and I may try to tie a lot of these back to the Braves. I wonder if perhaps Greinke's someone they would look at and they'd say, maybe you eat a little bit of the contract and we'll send over a couple of B minor league guys, and perhaps that's a trade the Braves can make. I
would love to see that. And I read somewhere about the Braves. We're probably two of the only people that follow these winter meetings like we do. But I love baseball, so I keep in. I was reading an article yesterday that said the Braves have been getting a lot of call about Albies, and rightfully so. He had a great first half of the year, tailed off a little bit in the second half.
I think he'll get better though as he gets older.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think the Braves have any interest in moving him whatsoever. No. But everybody that called about him, rumor is the Braves steered the conversation towards Dansby Swanson.
Yep.
What would you give him? So Dansby Swanson, a couple minor league. Now I like Dansby Swanson. I don't want to see him go, but Zach Greinke would be a coup.
He would. And it feels like Swanson, at least to me, is older than he is. He's only 24 years old. Only been in the league for 4 seasons.
And solid defensively. Great defensive player.
Absolutely. But still, for some reason, it feels like, at least offensively, it's a make or break here for him. I think he's batting .238, and that's after over 1,000 at bats, so a pretty good sample size. Yeah. So, but let's move on and talk about the hot stove. The Blue Jays released Troy Tulowitzki, which I found a little odd simply because I don't feel like Troy Tulowitzki is washed up yet.
Yep.
Plus, they still owe him $38 million over the next 2 years.
He's getting paid whether he plays or not.
Exactly. But what do you make of this?
I was surprised. I mean, I know he's been hurt a lot the last couple of years, but I was really surprised to see this move. Again, maybe they're banking on the fact. I don't know how major league contracts work. If somebody picks him up, do they have to eat most of the contract, or do the Blue Jays keep paying him no matter what?
No, the Blue Jays pay him no matter what, and you could get Troy Tulowitzki for as low as $500,000 next year.
Oh wow! So I don't understand this move at all. I really don't, unless they've got somebody else in mind and they're just replacing him.
I'm sure they do, and of course, it seems to me like the Blue Jays are another team that's getting ready to potentially break it down because they've got a lot of young guys. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is one of those young studs. I feel like Dante Bichette's son, I think he might be Dante Bichette Jr. As well. He plays in another organization. So they've got a lot of good young players coming up. So I feel like maybe they're just going to rebuild moving forward. But still, Troy Tulowitzki, somebody could get him similar to, I feel like, what the Braves did with Donaldson, where you sign him for a 1-year deal, let him go out and try to prove himself. If it works out, he's a great player, and you're going to get great stats. If it doesn't, it only costs you,
I think he's been solid for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Troy Tulowitzki, right now, Hall of Famer? Because I know he put up big numbers in Colorado.
Stats-wise, maybe, but I think the injury bug right now would probably keep him out.
Yeah, I would probably say no. Yeah. When it comes to Hall of Famers in baseball, if I have to think twice about it, I don't think they're in.
Right.
Anyway, moving forward. Right. So, in the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies have been expecting them to spend some money. They finally did it, although not necessarily on the player we thought. They got Andrew McCutchen, the outfielder.
3 years, $50 million?
Yeah. Not too shabby.
No. Smart move if you're Andrew McCutchen.
Sure.
Great player for the Pirates. Loved him with Pittsburgh. Loved him with Pittsburgh. As a matter of fact, he almost single-handedly put them back.
Yeah.
Put them back in contention. Put them back on the map. Did not do so well last year. I mean, 250 or 260. Didn't do great. But I thought $17 million a year is basically what this averages to. I thought that's a lot of money for McCutchen right now at this stage, I think.
Yeah. It is, and it's a stark contrast between 2015 when he won the MVP. I think it was 2015. Maybe it was a couple years before that. And now, and how much has changed. You're absolutely right. I mean, he was the anchor for that Pirates team for several years there. You know what? I'm okay with this simply because maybe this deters them from signing Bryce Harper.
That's right.
Maybe he ends up outside of our conference.
If Bryce Harper doesn't go to the Braves, I just hope he doesn't stay in the National League East.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like the Nationals. We're going to talk about this later, but they gave Corbin all that money. Perhaps they're out of the running too. So I think that might be a big impact with that. And then finally, for the MLB hot stove to finish this up, the Marlins. We talked about JT Realmuto, the catcher for them, who had a great year. Arguably the best catcher in the league. The Miami Marlins have come out and said they're ready to push to trade him. Where do you think he ends up?
Mets are mentioned as one of the front runners.
Yep.
Reds, Braves' name has been thrown in there, which is interesting. But the Braves don't have a long-term answer at catcher right now. I like Tyler Flowers. He's a good young player, good role player, good backup catcher in my opinion.
Right.
Who's got a pretty good back. They signed McCann to what, 1 year deal or 2 year deal?
1 year.
1 year deal
for only
for
$2 million.
Yeah, which is a great deal. I think McCann still got something in the tank. But if they could make that happen, I would be thrilled.
Yeah.
How old is he, by the way?
24, 25.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
fit right
still,
in with that young, youth movement.
His contract, I mean, he's still controllable for like at least 2 more years.
Oh yeah, if you could make that happen, that would be awesome.
At low money. But I mean,
But I don't think the Braves will get him.
It seems like every team out there is looking for this guy. I mean, because like I said, good catchers that are good defensively, but also good offensively are tough to find these days. And when you find one, and you're the Marlins, and you're starting from scratch, they're going to ask for a load back for Realmuto.
Because Derek Jeter looks like he's just all in on a rebuild.
Right.
I mean, anybody that's got any value, he's just letting go in it. So he's going to be expecting a bucket load of picks or players or prospects or something.
Yeah.
For this.
Just to bring it back to the Braves. Talking about Realmuto, I think I saw a package where they asked the Braves for Tuki Toussaint, Mike Soraka, and one other of our top players. And I was thinking, man, that's a tall order. And I would imagine that's what they're asking from other players. So
that's steep.
It is steep.
But I think with the Braves, I mean, I even heard NCarte was available. That shocks me. I like NCarte. I think he's a fantastic defensive center fielder, one of the top 5 in baseball, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
And so I don't, who knows? They're gonna have to give up somebody good to get that type of player.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then finally, let's move on to the Heisman pick was made this past Saturday. And it was between, Oklahoma's Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State, and, of course, Tua from Alabama. Yep. Now, I feel like going into it, Tua was the front runner. He ends up getting hurt. Jalen Hurts comes in, wins the day. I think maybe that hurt Tua in the long run. But Kyler Murray ends up being the Heisman winner. You good with that?
Yeah, great player. Great college football player. And when you say that, it almost sounds like you're saying – it's almost derogatory, but it's not. A great college football player. Sure. Although he's got no intention of going to the next level and playing football.
No, I don't think so.
But I think he's had a great college career. That's what the Heisman's about, what you do in college.
Absolutely. Second Oklahoma quarterback in a row to win the Heisman.
That is surprising.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So Lincoln Riley's doing something right down there.
Yes, he is.
So you mentioned talking about he could potentially go and play baseball, potentially for the Oakland A's. They've already paid him. I think this is going to be a really hard decision for him to make. A, because he's really good at both sports. B, because if he goes and stays with football, he'll immediately go to the NFL, whereas in baseball, it may take him 2 or 3 years to get to that level. So it's going to be a tough decision for him. He's obviously the best in college right now. So
he is. Scott Boras, his agent, said there's no decision to be made. Said he's definitely going to the A's. Of course, that could be just he could be just playing both sides, trying to build up a good offer from an NFL team.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go to our big impacts of the week. Of course, brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is local college, big impact. So, who you got for your big impact this week?
4 Richmond Raiders posted 5-0 records at the wrestling meet the other day. They were Steven Morales, Skylar Standridge, Joey Nicholson, and Austin Gallops. Congratulations. That's a great first-year program. Earl Nicholson has done a fantastic job with them. I'm thrilled to see this wrestling program getting off the ground and doing a great job. I think they're like 12-9 overall.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing to be so new and be so good so quickly.
Absolutely. And my big impact of the week, sticking local, talking about the boys Raiders basketball team got their first win of the season. Absolutely. This past Friday over Ronald Reagan High School, 46-31. So Ronald Reagan now 0-for-3 against the Raiders in football and basketball. So,
awesome.
Of course, congratulations.
We need to put them on the schedule more.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's finish it up the same way we always do with Love It or Hate It. Let's hit these real quick here. So we're talking about the Nationals. Their owner, Mark Lerner, has said that he's already maxed out his offer for Bryce Harper. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Goodbye, Bryce. Get out of the National League East if you're not going to Atlanta.
I love it too, although you can't trust anything these guys say.
No.
I mean, he probably says that. But I know they offered him $300 million. He turned it down. If you can offer $300, you can offer
$320.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me. They're always, especially in Vegas, they're bluffing each other.
Right.
So, up next, the Florida Gators athletic director says he would welcome a 2-for-1 series versus UCF, Central Florida. Love it or hate it.
I love that. UCF has been talking about, they don't get treated fairly in the rankings. What a great opportunity for them to prove themselves against a Florida. Although not as good as they used to be, Florida's a program with a great tradition, great conference. Be a good matchup. I'd love to see it.
I love it too for all the reasons you said. For UCF, it's going to be a chance for them to show their mettle against not only a Power 5 team, but an SEC team.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, for a team like UCF, they're going to have to play teams like this if they want to, sniff the CFP.
That's right.
In addition to going undefeated. As far as the Gators, I love it too because I think a lot of the hesitation some Power 5 teams have had is, what if we schedule them and then we lose, which is a possibility.
It's a real possibility. I think UCF is good.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that they're entertaining that idea.
Me too.
Let's see. Let's go to the NBA. Allen Iverson says that he would leave Magic Johnson off his all-time NBA starting 5. Love it or hate it.
All right, I don't know if we'll agree on this one or not, but I hate it. I'm from the age bracket. I was a Showtime Lakers fan growing up, and Magic Johnson, to me, just transcended the game. He and Larry Bird saved the NBA when they were in a tank as far as ratings. And I know that's not what the top 5 players of all time is about, but he just made everybody around him better. I mean, went to 9 finals, 5 championship rings, and just went up against and beat the best in a great era of basketball.
Sure.
I mean, so that's my opinion anyway.
I'm going to say hate it as well. I would have thought AI would know better.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who you asked that leaves off Magic in your starting 5, even with, some of the players we've seen today. Now, if you press me to come up with a starting 5 right this second, it would take me a little bit. But I really feel like Magic would be on the vast majority of people's starting 5. So,
my favorite all-time player, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Love Magic.
I mean, that's a good one to have.
Yeah.
Up next, going back to baseball. Major League Baseball says that it may change some rules to limit defensive shifts moving forward. Love it or hate it?
I don't know how I feel about this one. I read all year long I watched a ton of baseball last year. I probably watched more baseball last year and the past 2 years. I've watched in several years. And my whole thing is when I'm watching Freeman, who I love, hit the ball the other way.
Yep.
Hit the ball. So I don't think we should change. In my opinion, I'm going to go with hate it because I don't think we should change the rules to accommodate the players. Learn to hit the other way.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I don't like this. And now, see, me, I'm a baseball purist. But I also understand that the sport is going to evolve over time.
I hate the shift, by the way, but I don't think you should.
Right. I'm not a huge fan of it either, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And, and if you're allowed within the rules to do that, then you can do it. It's ways we're seeing the game change, like how some teams like the Rays and the Athletics have done, where they start an opener instead of a starter and they work through their bullpen. Things like that change in baseball. I'm right there with you. I say to guys, if they're shifting you, just bunt it down the third baseline or first baseline. Eventually, if you keep doing that, they'll stop shifting. However, I asked Scott Emerson about this, and he said that in this day and age, guys are paid to hit home runs. And to hit the ball hard, no matter what direction it is. Right. So as long as it stays that way and it's strikeout or home run days, I feel like that's not ever going to change. So up next, former Ole Miss coach Hugh Freeze was hired by Liberty. It's not the insurance company. It's Liberty University. So Hugh Freeze back on the coaching scene. Love it or hate it?
Love it. I love the university. My daughter's actually applied there.
Okay.
He's a great coach with a little bit of a background, but if we truly believe in second chances, I think it's a great program to go up there and get a second chance and get a fresh start.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know he had some issues at Ole Miss with some NCAA violations. Basically ended his tenure there. But he was a good coach. He was a good recruiter. The program did well underneath him. Like you said, a second chance for him. I think he'll spend a few years at Liberty, and we'll eventually see him back in perhaps a Power 5 program. This is a funny one. NASA has offered to show proof of the moon landing to Steph Curry because he doesn't believe in it. Love it or hate it?
I love it. What a great response. My daughters and I were talking about this last night. My daughter came home and said, I don't believe in the moon landing. I said, please don't say that in public. Please don't deny history in public. Yeah. And so I loved NASA's response. What a great way to come back to that.
I love the response, but shame on Steph Curry. I mean, he seems like a smart guy. Went to a good school at Davidson. Like, he should have.
Surely they taught him that at Davidson.
Maybe he's trolling people. I don't know, but he has to know that's real. It's kind of like Kyrie Irving thinks the Earth's flat.
Yeah,
like,
we talked about that one last time.
He went to Duke. Like, he should have got a top-notch education there.
I agree.
Moving forward, going back to baseball for the last time, free agent reliever Adam Ottavino says that he would be able to strike out Babe Ruth every time if Babe played today. Love it or hate it?
Hate it. Easy to say right now, but Babe Ruth would take him deep.
I'm right there with you. I feel like Babe would still be able to perform very well in this day and age. And Ottavino, he's a decent reliever, but the Babe, I don't know about
Babe
that.
would get him 1 out of 3 times anyway.
At least. That's all you need.
That's right.
If you, the thing I love about baseball is you can do something 10 times, fail 70% of the time, and be a millionaire.
And be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, be in the Hall of Fame, yeah. Moving forward, Le'Veon Bell liked a post featuring the Steelers' latest loss. Now, look, I don't like to get into the whole social media thing, but this is a little curious, right? Love it or hate it?
I'm going to hate it. I mean, he says he's pulling for the Steelers. I get the acrimony there. I get why they're not getting along. I even get why he set out and is playing and holding out for his money next year. But come on, man, this team stood by you when you were getting suspended and still paying you millions of dollars a year to play.
Yeah.
Show a little bit of class, in my opinion.
I hate it too. I know it's real easy to just click a button on your phone or on your laptop or whatever and then not forget about it. But people notice this sort of thing, obviously, and I don't know, perhaps he's leaving with some bad blood in Pittsburgh.
Yep, must be.
I doubt we'll see him again in a Steelers uniform. Moving forward, Kansas State. Bill Snyder retired last week, so they needed a replacement, and they picked up North Dakota State's Chris Kleiman to be their new head coach, guy coming off of multiple championships at that level. Love it or hate it?
Love it. I mean, it's a good move up for him, good move up for the school.
Absolutely.
Seems to be a great recruiter, great coach. He gets a lot out of his players.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, this is the kind of coach you see slowly move up the ranks.
Yep.
It won't be too far before we'll see him. Ohio State might need a coach. We'll have to wait and see.
Never know.
And then finally, this was one that Russell hated, but he's not here, so we'll do it without him. Imagine Dragons are going to be playing the college football playoff halftime show. Imagine Dragons. Love it or hate it?
I don't have much of an opinion. I'll go love it, I guess. Imagine Dragons are okay by me, but that's not my style of music. So,
I know Russell was very upset about this.
He did not like it at all.
He didn't like it because he thought it was just going to be them and not the school bands. Of course, Dion told us that it will be the school bands as well.
Bands will be participating.
It's all about money at that level.
Right.
That's a big time artist or group. People know their music. It'll be a good time.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, that's going to do it for the Ross Rundown. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. And, of course, want to remind folks that we have changed up the way we're doing business. You can now catch different forms of the sports show. We're doing different specials Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays right now. So, of course, you can find that all across the RO's platforms. And it's all free.
That's right.
Can't beat it.
Right.
Brand Fall, I'm Matt Harrelson. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.